On October 24, 1945, there was a piece of news in major newspapers. Chen Yi, the officer to accept Japan's surrender in Taiwan and the Penghu Islands, China Theater, boarded a plane bound for Taiwan. He was no stranger to the land of Taiwan. 10 years ago, in 1935, around this season, he was invited to the Taiwan Exposition as chairman of the Fujian provincial government. Back then, he was merely an invited guest. But now he was traveling there to be Taiwan's governing official. Meanwhile, the 61-year-old Japanese Governor-General of Taiwan, Ando Rikichi, was awaiting Chen's arrival. Ando and Chen were old acquaintances. Both learned in the Imperial Japanese Army Academy and the Japanese Army War College. At this moment, Ando, once Japan's supreme ruler in Taiwan, was now waiting as the defeated for Chen to accept his surrender. As for Taiwan, which had been under colonial rule for 50 years, it was a turnaround and rebirth after tremendous sufferings.
Reflecting on the trend of the times and the circumstances faced by our empire, I have resolved to effect an extraordinary measure for the settlement of the current state of affairs. I hereby make known to my good and loyal subjects that I have commanded the imperial government to notify the governments of the United States, Britain, China, and the Soviet Union that our empire accepts the provisions of the joint declaration that they issued.
Right after August 15, 1945, people in Taiwan were feeling different things.
That day was so special, we were informed ahead of time that at 12 p.m., Hirohito would make an important broadcast. I was all dressed up, and I listened. It was a long recording, with a lot of crackling noise. The Japanese next door were crying, and I knew Japan had surrendered. We were very happy.
I looked at my father, asking why Japan was defeated. My father said it just happened. He didn't say more. Why's that? Because they might have been defeated, but Taiwan was not restored. It was yet to be taken over.
After Tenno Hirohito announced the surrender, people in Taiwan who had suffered from Japanese rule felt so happy inside. However, at first, they didn't dare to show their feelings of joy.
Why not? The Japanese were still there. There were still 200,000 Japanese troops and police there. So, the people of Taiwan couldn't show their feelings immediately. It needed to take some time, until it was September or October, before their feelings started to show.
On August 29, 1945, the national government appointed the 62-year-old Chen Yi as Governor-General of Taiwan Province. On September 1st, this news appeared in the highest circulating newspaper on the island, the Taiwan Shinpo. On September 7th, Chen was made Commander-in-Chief of Taiwan Garrison Command, responsible for the surrender acceptance in Taiwan, including the Penghu Islands.
Among the Kuomintang, Chen knew both Taiwan and Japan well. Such an expert was very rare among Kuomintang officials at that time.
He studied in the Japanese Army War College. Many governors general came from that school, so the Japanese military held a certain respect for Chen. and after he took over, he had certain authority over the Japanese military.
At the time, Japan's last Governor-General, Ando Rikichi, felt anxious. As early as August 15, Isayama Haruki, Chief of Staff of the Japanese forces there, advised refusing Chinese forces landing. Half a month later, a group of young officers also petitioned him. The Imperial Army must never humbly surrender to others. Taiwan, developed with such painstaking effort. We must fight our last battle with the enemy. With the recovery of Taiwan soon, we should distribute notices to the people and the enemy institutions here to uplift the people and reassure them. This is the plan for Taiwan's restoration held in the Academia Historica. Chen Yi was also aware of those plots of the Japanese colonial authorities, and the national government quickly responded. All Japanese military officers and police in Taiwan should await the takeover in peace, must not act beyond the norm, or harm people or their property, and should maintain public order. On August 23, 1945, the China Theater Army Headquarters ordered in a telegram Okamura Yasuji, Commander-in-Chief of the Japanese forces in China, to immediately summon the Supreme Commanders and plenipotentiary representatives north of the 16 degrees north, in Vietnam and in Taiwan and Penghu, to Nanjing by September 2nd. On this day, Lin Shintong, a local squire, got a notice to visit Nanjing immediately as a representative of the people of Taiwan for the surrender ceremony.
During the Japanese occupation, Lin Shintong's clan in Wufeng was large and thriving. In Taiwan at that time, he was probably the most esteemed.
Lin Shintong, his ancestors from Zhangzhou, Fujian, was born in 1881 in Taichung, in the prestigious Lin family of Wufeng. He began his Chinese cultural education at age 7. Lin never spoke Japanese, nor wore kimono. He was regarded as a leader of the Taiwan autonomy movement, and a nanny of Han culture. On September 8, 1945, with the surrender ceremony approaching, Lin Shintong, who was already in Nanjing, had not yet received notification of the exact time and location, nor did he know whom to contact. He then turned to Isayama Haruki.
Isayama told them, "We are here to surrender, so there are only representatives of the military, no representatives of the people of Taiwan." It was a lie. At that time, He Engqin had already agreed to have 6 civilians from Taiwan in the ceremony.
So later He Engqin said to them, "I had invited you there, and why didn't you show up?" I think the Japanese just did not want the Taiwanese to see their humiliating surrender.
In the auditorium of the Central Military Academy, Nanjing, the Japanese signed their surrender documents. General Okamura Yasuji, the Japanese representative, arrived there at 8:45 a.m. Their every move became the focus for the news photographers. At 9:15 a.m., the Japanese began signing the surrender. Chief of Staff Kobayashi ground the ink. It was a beautiful scene. After Okamura finished signing, he presented the instrument of surrender to Commander He. Thus, the fate of the Japanese nation was sealed.
Entering September 1945, from the ceremony aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, for the surrender of the Japanese government and the Imperial General Headquarters to the Allies, to the ceremony in Nanjing for their surrender in the China theater. Historic scenes of Japan's surrender unfolded one after another. And things were changing quietly in Taiwan, too. Rumors of restoration started spreading in the streets. Zhang Kehui, who had just ended his boy soldier days, witnessed quite some festive scenes on his way back to school.
We returned to Jianghua. From the train station to our school, there was a 30-minute walk. People were so excited, lighting firecrackers, beating gongs and drums, and shouting glory to the motherland.
Wu Zhuoliu, reporter for the Taiwan Xinpo, felt the changes more acutely than other people. The islanders couldn't wait to see the arrival of the motherland's army. Like an orphan wanting a mother. And there was a complete political vacuum. As the takeover was taking so long. Wu Zhuoliu was born in 1900 in Hsinchu, Taiwan. His generation was educated under Japan's rule. He had been a teacher, joined poetry societies, and later became a reporter. When under Japanese colonial rule, he had to write with caution. Now with Japan's surrender and the widespread news of restoration, Wu Zhuoliu felt so light-hearted. As I could write news stories freely, I felt like a bird out of the cage. There were celebratory reports every day, creating quite a buzz. 6 million islanders reveled in the dream of restoration. Located on Zhongshan Road in Nanjing, the Second Historical Archives of China is a national-level central archive specializing in the collection, preservation, and utilization of ROC central government archives. Kept here is the organizational outline of the Taiwan Provincial Administrative Executive Office. On September 20, 1945, the outline, drafted under Chen Yi's direction, was approved by the national government's executive yuan. A system of administration distinct from that of provinces in the Chinese mainland was established.
Taiwan was a special case. Different from other provinces, Taiwan was taken over. Japan had ruled it for 50 years before the takeover. It was complicated.
Provincial governors under the Kuomintang government did not have enough power. They had no control over the military or the economy. What he was to have was the administrative executive office, which was much higher than a provincial government. He could have many extra powers over the military, administration and economy.
The day after receiving his appointment, Chen Yi nominated to the national government main members of the administrative executive office. Gu Jingyan was nominated as Secretary General of the office. He used to be Chen's chief of staff when Chen was commander of the Zhejiang Army's 1st Division. Other main members of the office nominated then for the Secretariat, Civil Affairs, Education, and such were also mostly his trusted former subordinates.
Chen's team consisted mainly of his staff. When he was chairman of Fujian Province, the Taiwanese he appointed were mostly those in the Taiwan Investigation Committee, or those who joined the administrative cadre training program later.
On September 27, 1945, Lin Xintong published in the Taiwan Xinpo an article, "The Motherland Never Forgot Us." The article said that although the Japanese made them miss the ceremony in Nanjing, they still visited the auditorium where it was held. Lin believed inviting Taiwanese representatives to the ceremony meant the motherland had not forgotten them. At the time, people in Taiwan had started making welcome banners. Some merchants also mass-produced and hoarded them, resulting in soaring fabric prices in Taipei.
All red fabrics were sold out in Taipei. People knew the flag had a white sun on it, but not the exact number of its rays. So as they made the flags themselves, some had 10 rays, some 12, some 9, and some 8.
As the restoration drew nearer, the island was brimming with enthusiasm. Many civil societies were established, and young students also became active. Hu Xiuzong, a student from the College of Medicine, Taiwan University, started the Taiwan Student Alliance.
Before Taiwan's restoration, the alliance mainly focused on welcoming Taiwan's return, promoting the motherland, and most importantly, learning Mandarin, like learning Mandarin songs. Songs were important. The first song many of them learned was the March of the Volunteers.
On October 5, 1945, Lieutenant General Gu Jingyan, Secretary General of the Administrative Executive Office, and his 71 men, arrived at Songshan Airport. Gu, following orders, flew to Taipei to make arrangements for the surrender. Officers from the motherland appeared before the people of Taiwan for the first time, and received a grand welcome. Years later, Gu Jingyan recalled that day. I was having a fever of 40 degrees Celsius. The date couldn't be changed, so I had to go. Most Japanese there held Chinese flags and shouted hooray. Our compatriots there were so jubilant. Everyone in the welcoming crowd was in tears.
The Chinese troops went there to accept the surrender, and they had a lot to do, so a forward command post was needed to make contact with the Japanese troops in Taipei. When the main force of tens of thousands arrived, they would need transportation and accommodation, need to take care of food, water, and social order. It was a massive and systematic project.
Through the many details, they needed to show everyone they were the victors, and give the defeated invaders a lesson in their face. On the other hand, they should try to avoid humiliating the surrenderers too much, as it might give rise to lasting ethnic hatred.
Located in Taipei City, adjacent to Jingfu Gate, this building used to be the Japanese Governor General's office. On October 6, Gu Jingyan led his troops of the Forward Command Post and held the first flag-raising ceremony at this former Governor General's office. Over the island of Taiwan, which had been under Japan's colonial rule for 50 years, the motherland's flag once again flew high. At 4 p.m., Gu delivered Memorandum No. 1 and No. 2 of the Administrative Executive Office to Isayama, Chief of Staff of the Japanese forces in Taiwan, informing them of matters to be observed before their formal surrender.
The priority was to get to know Taiwan. All institutions in Taiwan were instructed to prepare rosters of personnel and property, so when the government finally arrived, they could start their work right away. So, it was preparatory work they were doing, and of course, arrangement for the surrender acceptance.
On October 10, 1945, the system of dating in the Taiwan Shinpo changed from Showa to Minhwa, which was a significant change. From that day on, the Chinese language sections in the Taiwan Shinpo gradually replaced the Japanese ones. This is Bailuan Port in Ningbo, Zhejiang. In October 1945, the 70th Corps of the National Revolutionary Army received an urgent order. They were about to depart from here, for Taiwan. This corps had fought the Japanese for years, through major battles like the Battle of Shanghai, the Battle of Nanjing, and the Fujian-Zhejiang campaign. Before departing from Ningbo, they did not receive any special mobilization or training.
Got loud firecrackers and gongs around me. The locals saw us off to Taiwan, boarded the warship at Xinjiang Bridge. Confetti and ribbons in the air. No gifts, though. The firecrackers kept going.
We were wearing rubber shoes. All our uniforms were also delivered to Ningbo from various places.
Anyway, back then we changed our uniforms when in Ningbo and bought some toothpaste and toothbrushes.
The cooks carried pots and pans and left like that.
With a company as the basic unit, we had to bring, cook, and eat our own food for 2 meals. As there was no supply, we had to carry all that stuff ourselves.
Where is Taiwan? Lin Jingwu, an 18-year-old soldier from Quanzhou, Fujian, had only a rough idea. It was the place where his fellow townsman Jing Qinggong drove out the Dutch 3 centuries ago. When they assembled in Ningbo, Lin Jingwu also heard about the 200,000 Japanese troops on the island. He and his comrades prepared for a landing battle.
On the ship, we were preparing for battle, so sure that the landing soon wouldn't be easy, as we all knew, the Japanese were vicious. They wouldn't let us land easily. Everyone thought so. All the soldiers knew to ready the bayonets when aboard the ship and to prepare for battle.
The warship pitched and rolled on the sea, and those on board suffered severe seasickness. On October 17th, the transport ship slowly docked. The exhausted 70th Corps was about to land at Keelung Port. However, there was no resistance awaiting them. In April 2015, the Taiwan 1945 production crew came to Washington. In the massive archives of the U.S. National Archives, they found this precious footage, which records the 70th Corps' landing at Keelung Port. Warships loaded with the motherland's troops came. The shore cheered with jubilation. Those on board did not see the expected battle and looked puzzled. Slowly, some began waving back to those on shore. Amid the warm welcome, emerged some disapproval. The 70th Corps appeared poorly equipped, and carried pots and pans. There was disappointment on some locals' faces.
The folks saw the 70th Corps, and called them beggar soldiers, and many young people also wondered how these beggar soldiers had defeated the Imperial Army. So, this picture has always been widely used and exaggerated, but more photos prove they were not like that at all.
Our country fought the Japanese for 14 years and became impoverished. You want to tax the people, but they have no more money. What can you tax them for? What can you do? When the state coffers are empty, whether in equipment or weapons, we were no match for them. But if you say they beat us in morale, I don't agree.
From this video footage, the talk differs greatly from the truth. In fact, the 70th Corps was neatly dressed and imposing, striding ashore in orderly columns. The pier was already packed, with thousands of people. They waved small flags, welcoming the motherland's forces. They strode proudly with high morale, inspiring the huge, welcoming crowd. The Taiwan Shinpo of October 18, 1945, used such words to describe the 70th Corps' grand landing at Keelung Port.
That afternoon, a train took us to Taipei. After disembarking and reassembling, we marched in formation to the Confucius Temple. Along the way, people were all cheering, elders smiling, and children dancing. Everyone was shouting hooray, and the flags. It was all joyful welcome on the way.
A few days earlier, Zhang Qilang, a famous doctor in Hualien, built welcoming archways with great joy. Every archway had a couplet on it.
I heard from my grandmother that my grandfather spent 60,000 on the 3 archways. You should know, back then, that was a lot of money.
Though Zhang Anman was so young then, his grandfather's indescribable excitement remains fresh in his memory.
With government officials arriving to show his welcome, he built archways in 3 places, Ruisui, Finglan, and Hualien. On the archways, we can see there are welcoming couplets. He wrote here, "Joyfully, the land is restored. Happily, the flag is renewed." The couplets were all about the country and the people.
Ruan Chuanfa, from Chuanzhou, was a trainee in the Taiwan Police Cadre Training Program at the Central Police Officers School. After getting assigned to Taiwan, he graduated ahead of schedule on October 10, 1945. While the 70th Corps was getting ready at Ningbo, Ruan Chuanfa and his classmates were also leaving their school in western Fujian on a 2-day journey to Fuzhou to await orders.
We left for Maui 2 days later, so why wait a couple of days in Fuzhou? First, to await orders. Orders from above. Also to have uniforms made. Everyone had a yellow khaki uniform, a Sam Brown belt, and a dagger at the waist. Looking so majestic. We were going to Taiwan. We represented the country, going there to restore Taiwan.
On October 23, 1945, at Maui Port in Fuzhou, a fleet of 26 Allied landing crafts, carrying Ruan Chuanfa and other administrative personnel, totaling over 1,000 people, set sail from below the Luoxing Tower.
We, together with the Americans, held a celebration party. On the deck, there were black American sailors who were very friendly. They knew we were going to recover Taiwan, and they were happy for us. And we exchanged gifts, sang, and danced at the party.
She Tungmin, reassigned to the takeover, was also in the same fleet as Ruan Chuanfa, returning home to Taiwan. She Tungmin, with ancestral roots in Zhangpu, Fujian, was born in Zhonghua, Taiwan in 1908. In 1925, frustrated with Japanese colonial rule, he went alone to the Chinese mainland for study. In 1942, he accepted an invitation to participate in establishing Kuomintang's Taiwan headquarters. After that, She engaged in anti-Japanese activities in places like Zhangzhou, Yong'an and Fuzhou. Now, with the War I and Taiwan's restoration approaching, he was filled with mixed feelings.
At 19, he went alone to the Chinese mainland and returned at 39, when Taiwan was recovered. He spent 20 years on the Chinese mainland, studying, working, and fighting for Taiwan's restoration. He felt those 20 years of his life were something that was well worth recording, so his autobiography is titled The Return. It was a full circle, back to where it all started.
On the morning of October 24, 1945, the fleet carrying She Tungmin and Ruan Chuanfa arrived at Keelung. Crowds of people gathered at Pier No. 2.
All along the way, throngs of people lined both sides of the railway. Some held small flags, some shouting hooray, and some singing welcome songs.
台湾今日庆生病，永寿青天白日晴，600万民众快乐，我将单数表欢迎，哈哈多数欢迎，哈哈多数欢迎。
At every stop, the locals gathered around the train windows. Every window was surrounded. They were there to shake our hands, to talk to us. Even though it was brief, they were so happy to talk to us because we spoke the same language, which was Hokkien. As we spoke the same language, we all felt so close to each other. So good, they were happy. Their fellow countrymen had arrived.
This is Taipei's Songshan Airport. It was built during the Japanese occupation and was called Taipei Flight Field at that time. On October 24, 1945, Chen Yi, to accept the surrender in Taiwan, flew from Shanghai to Songshan Airport. Upon disembarking, Chen delivered a broadcast speech in Mandarin, with a strong Shaoxing accent.
I'm not here for a political career. I'm here to serve Taiwan, to work for the people's well-being, and to develop this land.
When Chen's car passed through, tens of thousands went to welcome him. The fervent atmosphere was unseen in the past 50 years. The Southeast Daily of October 26, 1945, reported so on Chen's arrival in Taiwan. With his arrival, the change of administration was about to begin. Located on Yanping South Road in Taipei, Zhongshan Hall was called the Public Auditorium under Japanese rule. And there used to be a late Qing government office there. In 1931, on the pretext of marking Emperor Hirohito's accession, the Japanese demolished that office and built the Taipei Public Auditorium there. This place has witnessed a series of major events in modern Taiwan. In mid-October 1945, many squires in Taiwan received an invitation. The surrender ceremony in Taiwan, China Theater, was to be held on October 25 at the Taipei Public Auditorium. The invitation also included matters requiring attention for attending. Early on October 25, 1945, Lin Xintong took his invitation and set out from Yishui Garden towards the Taipei Public Auditorium. Preserved in the Academia Historica, this sign-in roster shows the Chinese government representatives there included: Chen Yi, Governor-General of Taiwan Province and Commander-in-Chief of the Taiwan Garrison Command; Gu Jingyan, the Administrative Executive Office's Secretary-General, etc. Local representatives included Lin Xintong, Lin Maosheng. There were the press and allied representatives, too, totally 250 people. As a policeman maintaining order there, Guan Chuanfa was also at the Taipei Public Auditorium.
I was lucky to be assigned inside the auditorium. I witnessed the entire ceremony with my own eyes. There was a couplet outside: recover the old land, build a new Taiwan. The horizontal scroll above said, restoration of Taiwan.
Wu Zhuoliu, a journalist invited to the ceremony, observed this moment carefully. As for the ceremony area inside the auditorium, both up and down the stage were packed to capacity. A portrait of Sun Yat-sen hung in the front center, with illustrious generals lined on both sides. In the guest seats were allied generals and envoys. Governor-General Chen Yi appeared so excited. At 10 o'clock sharp, the ceremony began. Chen Yi, the officer to accept surrender in Taiwan, conveyed Order No. 1 to Japan's Governor-General of Taiwan and Commander of the 10th Area Army, Ando Rikichi.
Chen handed the order to that Ando Rikichi. Ando signed the instrument of surrender and presented it back to Chen.
Wu Chunjian, a Central Daily News reporter, described the Japanese representatives like this. Ando tremblingly picked up the pen, and, not daring to hesitate, signed his name on the receipt. It was the most tense moment. All held their breath in silence. The other Japanese representatives were all pale, lowering their heads to their chests. Ando handed the receipt to Lieutenant General Isayama, who presented it to Chen. After another 90-degree bow, he sat down.
After Chen Yi read out the instrument of surrender, Ando Rikichi slowly exited the venue. At that moment, I realized it was a historic event. I wouldn't forget it for the rest of my life.
The vice president and chief writer of the Taiwan Shinpo, Japanese journalist Ito Kinjiro, was also present at the ceremony. He wrote, "Given the outcome, I was basically there to bid farewell to Japan's Taiwan, and at the same time, watch the birth of a newborn Taiwan that was returned to China. All those feelings I had." Chen Yi announced via broadcast, "Starting today, Taiwan and the Penghu Islands are officially restored to China. All land, people, and governmental affairs there are now under the sovereignty of the Republic of China." This event of historic significance is hereby reported and made known to all Chinese people and the entire world. Now that Taiwan has been restored, we should thank all those martyrs who sacrificed for Taiwan's restoration, and the officers and soldiers of this war.
Chen Yi had two roles. His first role was Governor General of the Taiwan Administrative Executive Office of ROC. He was a civil servant. Meanwhile, he served as Taiwan Garrison Command's commander. Right after accepting Japan's surrender, Chen announced starting then that day, Taiwan was officially recovered. That was the administrative takeover. That was Taiwan's return to the motherland. American representatives were there, by his side, all supportive. The people of Taiwan also cheered for it.
So Taiwan's return is clear and indisputable. Legally, it's also very clear. As we say it now, there are both witnesses and evidence. So many officials of that time were all there. And in written records, whether official documents or people's personal diaries or other transcripts, all are very complete.
On October 25, 1945, the Japanese signed the surrender at Taipei Zhongshan Hall, returning Taiwan and Penghu to our country. Taiwan, occupied for 50 years, was reunited with the motherland. Millions of compatriots in Taiwan regained their freedom and celebrated on the streets.
After the surrender acceptance ceremony, that afternoon, also at the Taipei Public Auditorium, Lin Xintong presided over and spoke at the Restoration Celebration meeting. Now we must unite and strive to build the ideal new Taiwan. We must also remember that this victory is because this war of resistance, aligned with the ideals of justice and humanity.
The citizens of Taipei, regardless of age or gender, all came out in the streets. The whole city went wild. General Fan and General She from traditional beliefs. The Suona, Nongguan music and Beiguan music. You know, Hokkien music and instruments, with Chinese features. Were all out there in street parades, bustling and lively, and Wu Zhuoliu was so touched, saying that 50 years of the Kaminka movement were blown away in a single day.
The Taiwan Shinpo, founded on June 17, 1895, had the highest circulation during the Japanese occupation. Starting from October 25, 1945, it was officially renamed the Taiwan Xin Daily News.
This piece here is a replica of our inaugural issue. Let me give you more details. From the inaugural issue of our newspaper. Up till now, the 5 characters for the name were written by Mr. Yu Yuren. This page is special. Why is that? All those various businesses in Taiwan actively published ads for a whole page to celebrate Taiwan's restoration.
The day after the surrender acceptance, the Taiwan Xin Daily News published an editorial. Speaking of the restoration, we have in our hearts irrepressible joy. The tide has turned. Taiwan owes its present to the countless sufferings of the motherland.
Taiwan Restoration Day is a day that should not be forgotten. Looking back on this very day, 69 years ago, here in this place, we accepted the Japanese surrender, and Taiwan's 50 years of subjugation finally ended, getting reunited with the motherland.
In August 1946, the Administrative Executive Office issued an order, making October 25, the date of surrender acceptance, as Taiwan Restoration Day. On this day, traditional Chinese deity statues and sedan chairs appear in the streets of Taiwan. From 1946 till now, people in Taiwan have been celebrating this day. with street parades. As Taiwan was restored, the high and mighty Japanese colonizers became captives and civilians to be repatriated overnight. How would Chen Yi and his office grapple with the takeover of administration, military and police affairs? How would the 500,000 Japanese in Taiwan embark on their journey home? Please stay tuned for the 6-episode historical documentary, Taiwan 1945, Episode 3, Takeover and Repatriation.